My favourite documentary would be a documentary about Ayrton Senna. Surprisingly, it's called Senna. It was released in 2010. Brilliant documentary, featured a lot of real life footage, so it wasn't acted.
What is my favourite type of documentary? I prefer nature-based documentaries, typically the sort of thing that's done by David Attenborough. The reason being is they're informative, they explain things that you didn't know about, and you can see animals living in their home environment and how they interact with each other.
Favourite documentary series at the moment has been The Educating Essex, Cardiff, Yorkshire. I think they're really, really well put together. I just think they're interesting, they're quite humorous, they give a good insight into teenage life, I think, in general, rather than in just one specific town or location, because I think there's quite a common thread through them all. But I like them, I find them enlightening, and I do like the humour of them.
My favourite documentary are ones that are the history, because I'm interested in that. So I like learning about the past when I'm watching the documentaries, and I just find them really interesting and informative. I prefer watching crime documentaries because they're really informative and there's always a presenter in display on screen, which makes it even more interesting to watch.
I followed a life of possibly the greatest F1 driver of all time. It was very accurate, had a great storyline, filled a lot of emotion. You could feel a lot of empathy in you when you're watching a film. It was very, very factual. Nothing was false, as I said. It was real life footage, meaning it was probably impossible to make false. As well as I thought Senna offered a great experience and a great insight into Senna's life, not just on the track, but also off the track in family life, and what kind of person Senna was. It was really quite mind-opening, really, into experience and to watch exactly how Senna went through his F1 career. With a lot of twists and emotions as well. There's a lot of happiness in there, a lot of sadness obviously towards the end of his death. And I think Spielberg made the film and did an absolutely brilliant job with it.
The reason I like this style of documentary is because it informs you about animals you don't know, and you see species in their environment rather than zoos or parks, which is unnatural.
I find them enlightening, and I do like the humour of them. I think it can be quite dull just watching documentaries that are just trying to put one thing over either pity or concern or sorrow. I think that with that kind of series they're touching on all of those things.
My favourite documentary are ones that are the history, because I'm interested in that. So I like learning about the past when I'm watching the documentaries, and I just find them really interesting and informative. I prefer watching crime documentaries because they're really informative and there's always a presenter in display on screen, which makes it even more interesting to watch.
I obviously look for factual things. I don't like documentaries that lie. I look for real life footage if you can get hold of it. I look for the emotion being portrayed across. I like it to be dead in quite modern terms. I like it to feel like you're part of the documentary, like you're learning, not just watching. I feel like when you watch a documentary and the documentary is not filled with sort of emotion, like it's filmed with just plain facts. It's not very good. Like telling the story as well, I think it's quite important in documentary.
What I'm looking for in a documentary is some documentary footage which is not commonly seen, and animals living in their natural state, and how the animals interact with each other and other animals.
what am I looking for in a documentary? I'm looking for entertainment, I'm looking for an amount of education, so I feel like I've come away having learned something, and the human aspect, I quite like that.
In a documentary, I look for something that's quite eye-catching, so something that's not boring, that will bore the audience. So a bit of like suspense, or something that will get the audience into watching the documentary more. I think it's kind of the same, like it has to be interesting and you have to feel like you're engaging with it and it's informative and it's just
The adult fit the documentary, personally I didn't like. As well as it bent the facts of Adolf Hitler, it made him out to be something that he wasn't. It also misused Nietzsche quite a bit and his influences, and it focused quite a lot on later life, which is obvious, I know, Hitler and the Holocaust, but his early life it didn't focus a lot on, it didn't really tell a story, there was not a lot of emotion, it was quite down. It was quite a dreary documentary, it was quite long and wasn't very engaging for the audience.
Name the documentary I don't like and why. I don't like documentaries such as Pimp My Bride, or the husband decides on what the wife's going to do, or where someone's just doing it for their 5 minutes of fame, where there's nothing to be learned, nothing to be gained from it. It's just mindless TV, you're waiting for someone to do something wrong. Commonly known as car crash TV.
Documentaries I don't like are, to be specific, ones that are all focused on tales of woe. I particularly don't like the ones where it deals with rogue traders, builders and things like that. I do think it has quite a negative effect. I think sensible people would follow a sensible process of employing people who do work in their homes. Some of these things are very unfortunate, but I think that altogether just continually paint very negative pictures. And I just think that if they continue in that vein, then nobody would have anything ever done to their houses. So I just think they're negative. They probably do.
I don't like scientific documentaries because I've had them and find them quite boring. I don't have any interest in those, so that's definitely the type of documentary I just never watch. I don't particularly like nature ones because I don't find them that interesting with what they show.
The first clip, I feel that it had a great storyline behind it, very inventive idea. I felt that you could really be engaged with it. The people involved in the clip were all very passionate, obviously, about what they were doing on the island. And there was quite a lot of action, as well as quite a lot of understanding and empathy between the audience and the characters. I feel the second one was more of an experiment rather than something you want to watch, for example. And I'm not a big fan of experimental programs. I quite like programs that you can get engaged with, that are quite gripping, have a lot of facts in obviously, but also have a good storyline, quite a bit of flow, and something that could be continued through a few series, not just stop after one episode.
I prefer the Bear Grylls bit, because it shows the interactions of people and how they work together or not together, and how people cope under stress. The first clip could be answered very simply. Penny wouldn't go through the concrete because it doesn't have the velocity to break the density of concrete, and that's the end of that, and they've just expanded the subject to a point where you knew the answer and you didn't need to watch anymore. Whereas in the first clip, it constantly changed with people's reactions, so you were enticed to watch more, and you wanted to know, and you became part of the program, and you followed the people. as you saw how they coped with the environment they were in.
Ireland and some kind of American documentary of Mythbusters. I don't know, I quite like the Mythbusters. The Island I do like because it's challenging, there's a human aspect and it's people putting themselves in that situation. They've offered themselves up, they're not there as a surprise. They obviously think they're quite good at it, so it's quite funny to see them not being good at it. But I really enjoyed the Mythbusters one. I think it's really good when they take a scientific approach. And these myths have been around for ages, they're proving them wrong. So that was my first viewing of that and I really enjoyed it. So I'd watch that one again.
I preferred the Island one much more because it was really interesting. It caught my eye and it felt like I wanted to carry on watching the documentary more. And it was just really intense. So yeah. I quite liked the second one, Busters one, because I found it was quite interesting because of what they chose to look at. Yeah, particularly like the first one because it was a bit, I just didn't find it that interesting. Yeah, I don't like the second one. I just found it quite boring. I suppose, which I had no interest in.